The Toronto Maple Leafs road trip has finally come to an end, and they were able to get the job done in New Jersey. It wasn't a pretty one, but they were able to get the job done. I'll give you my thoughts on the win and more on this latest edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast.
Your Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the March 8th edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, your daily fix for all things Leafs. I'm your host, David Morassutti from Sportsnet. Mike, he's starting his vacation today. He's actually probably up in the air as we're recording this right now. So I will be flying solo for today. Just a reminder that Locked On Leafs is a daily Maple Leafs centric podcast. So be sure to subscribe for free wherever you get your podcast from. And now you can catch us up on YouTube, Locked On Leafs. It's your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit fanduel.com/locked on to get you started. And boy, oh boy, do we have quite a bit to talk about on today's show. The Toronto Maple Leafs ending their road trip, which started all the way out in Seattle, went through Alberta, went to Vancouver, and then ending in New Jersey on Tuesday night. The Leafs picked up a 4-3 victory, and boy, it wasn't the prettiest of games, I will say. Wasn't the leafiest of games, but considering all the circumstances, I'm pretty sure many will take the 4-3 victory that came about. And we're gonna just dump right. We're gonna dive right into it. It was not a great start to this game. The first period, the Toronto Maple Leafs just they looked so out of it. They looked like a team that was ending a 5-game road trip spanning multiple time zones. And New Jersey Devils knew that, and they smelled blood. They were trying their best to get the jump on the Leafs. They were out shooting them like hilariously bad in that first period. But I will give the Toronto Maple Leafs credit. They did hang in there. They did, and a massive credit to that goes to Ilya Samsonov, who did his best to make sure the Leafs did not go down early, because this looked like a game that could have been, a shellacking if Samsonov didn't stand on his head in the first period. And then eventually the Leafs did turn things around. Second period, it was a totally different team in the second period. I think when you look at it, though, I think a lot of the changes that were made on the ice, no Ryan O'Reilly, no John Tavares, which means Sam Lafferty being moved up to the second line, Michael Bunting put to the fourth line, just so many different changes happening in the lineup. You will think that something like that will take some time to get settled in, especially considering they only had really one practice with all these line combinations. So it wasn't surprising that the Leafs came out of the game a little slow. It was a little surprising that on the defensive end it took some time to get things going, but once they got into a groove, it was nice to see that going up against a really good New Jersey Devils team. Like, let's not forget, the Devils have been playing really well since they made the trade for Timo Meier. This isn't a team that's inferior to the Leafs when you look at the opponents that they had played on the road trip. Right, they're not like, it's not the Calgary Flames, who had been struggling, not the Vancouver Canucks, although we don't want to let's not talk about how that game went with the Leafs, but like that, it's not that type of opponent. This is a really good Devils team that many believe could make a run, although a tough Metropolitan division, but a team that's done very well this season, has made life very hard on the Leafs. If you remember the two games they played against each other this season, even the last time that the Leafs played the Devils, they picked up the win, but it was a very similar sort of effect where the Devils were on the Leafs from start to finish, right? The overturned goalie interference calls that essentially helped the Leafs pick up the win. I mean, obviously they were good; they were the right calls made at the time, but those were very close games to the Leafs, and it could have gone either way. And it felt like this game had a bit of that similar mantra where the Leafs just needed to find a way to survive, find a way to just weather as much of the storm as they could and then capitalize on opportunities. And we saw that. Like the goal from Cali Yarncroke, what a play by Sam Lafferty and William Nylander, using their speed, using deceptiveness. All the Devils players just deciding that William Nylander was the only player on the ice in the offensive zone, leaving Cali Yarncroke in front of the net for the goal there. Like that, those sort of little things, those are the advantage things you have to take advantage of against a team like New Jersey, who are very stingy defensively. They don't give you much. And we saw that in this game. So that's something if you're a Leafs fan and you're looking at that, that's something you should be proud of seeing, is that finding a way through those tough moments just get through them, and then finding a way to just get the goal, right? You would think that with the way everything went, that the Leafs were struggling to even score goals, and they were the ones that scored first in this game. That was that was actually the ironic thing, is they found a way to score first, and that took a little bit of pressure off. But you give the Devils credit. The Leafs scored, they respond, right? And there were some very tough moments to watch on defensive coverage in front of the net. The Leafs did some leafy things where guys were left because two defenders decide to converge on the puck carrier and leaving one guy open for an easy chance and on net. So things like that, they still need to be worked on, still need to be touched up on, but I just like the response. The response from this group, they didn't, back down. They take that 4-minute penalty. Pontus Over takes that 4-minute penalty. You think, this is gonna make things really tough. And the Devils were getting their chances on that power play. And then Mitch Marner scores that shorthanded goal, just like we've come to see from him. It's kind of like a trademark Mitch Marner goal now. Just a beautiful goal there. Devils obviously respond right away. Then they take the lead, and you think, yeah, the Leafs might be running out of gas here. And this is where I think we saw the Leafs team that, this is the type of Leafs team that we need to see. One that's going to persevere in those tough moments. Just find a way. You're not playing your best, but just find a way to get the win. That's really it. And credit the another beautiful play by David Kampf, started by Justin Hall. I'm gonna give him credit for a beautiful pass that that sprung David Kampf in the offensive zone, and then finding Michael Bunting for the goal that tied the game. You didn't think I was getting a little skeptical whether the Leafs were going to find a way to tie it up, and then the Leafs get a late power play, and then it's Austin Matthews scoring goal. They honestly, I haven't seen in a little bit from Austin Matthews. Like, you could tell when you saw that celebration from Austin Matthews, it's almost like a monkey off the back in a way, or just relief on him, just to know, yeah, I still got it. I still have that shot. So a lot of good things to like from this game. And I'm going to go more specific into certain players that I thought did quite well in this game. To give my 3 stars, and we'll also continue to discuss a little bit more about some things that were said coming into this game that eyebrow raising moments, I'll call it eyebrow raising moments. So we'll discuss that and more. But first, let me tell you about today's show sponsor, and it is our title sponsor. It is the FanDuel Sports Book. It's the midway point of the NBA season, and we're getting close to the end of the NHL season. And it's now the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if you don't bet. If your first bet doesn't win, just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores, and how many shots a certain player is going to get in the game, who's going to score the first goal. Many, many different bets you can make over at FanDuel. I'm somebody who, partakes in a few bets myself. I like to build a couple of parlays. I like to get a couple of games involved to just, keep my interest in not just the Leafs sometimes, but other NHL games as well. But, I'm betting the Leafs when I get that opportunity. And the great thing about FanDuel is it even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you get the FanDuel Sportsbook on your phone. Go to fanduel.com/locked on. That's fanduel.com/locked on to learn more. Make every moment with FanDuel an official betting partner of the NBA and the Locked On Podcast Network. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. David Morassutti here. It is your team every day, and we cover this team 5 days a week. I know that Mike DeStefano is not here. He is on vacation. If you listen to Overdrive, and Leafs lunch, they've been talking about Mike's cruise vacation. I'm not gonna lie, a little envious on my part, but don't worry, I got you covered here. I do have some people that I'm working on to getting to join me on the show, so we get you. I like to bring other people on the show, get their thoughts on the Leafs and other things. So we'll have some guests joining us while Mike is away. So he'll be gone for the next little bit. So it will be me running the show. So I always appreciate it when you guys support me when just by coming back and listening and telling all your friends about the show, making sure you tell them to subscribe. We're getting up in those subscriber numbers. So I'm really happy to see that. Now, so the Leafs pick up this victory over the New Jersey Devils, and there were some people that deserve some recognition for how this game turned out. So, what's the best way than the usual 3 stars of the game? And I'm going to go a different route with some of my 3 stars. It's easy to go with, Austin Matthews and Michael Bunting because of the goals they scored. Although Michael Bunting was pretty good in this game, I'm not going to lie. It looked more like a first liner than a fourth liner, if you know what I mean. I know a lot of people were not exactly thrilled to see Michael Bunting on that fourth line, but I think it did help to have him there with Alex Steves and Pontus Olmberg. But Michael Bunting was also getting power play time and all of those great things. So it wasn't like his role was. I know some people were thinking, "Oh, Sheldon Keefe have something against Michael Bunting." I don't think so. I just think that when you have you want to be able to run your 4 lines and run them comfortably. And I think having Michael Bunting there, there was some sense made to it. I know some people would have rather seen Alexander Kerfoot there. Sheldon Keefe didn't seem to want to make that change right away. We'll see if that changes at all going forward. But yeah, not surprised that it was Michael Bunting on that line. So 3 stars of the game. Let's start with somebody that I've been quite impressed with since he joined the Leafs. One of the many players that were made brought in ahead of the trade deadline, and that's Jake McCabe. So I don't know if you guys saw this tweet over from Kevin Papetti. Before I do bring up that tweet, though, like just why I brought him up as one of my 3 stars. End of the game there, New Jersey is pushing for that tying goal, and Jake McCabe makes an important block to keep that game, keep the Leafs ahead in that game late in the third period. Those are the moments that you need a Jake McCabe on your team. That's why Jake McCabe was brought to Toronto. So he's been a breath of fresh air since the Leafs acquired him, playing on that shutdown pairing with TJ Brody and Kevin Papetti. I mentioned him. He brought up this tweet from the game, from just his observations. So Jake McCabe has now played 4 games with the Leafs, all on the road: Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, and New Jersey are all pretty strong at the top of the lineup. So now some people say, "Oh, Vancouver's not a good team." You look at the top line that they have, the top players they have. JT Miller, Elias Pettersson are still doing quite well this season. Those are not easy opponents to go up against, and that's who Jake McCabe has to go up with night in, night out. All pretty strong at the top of the lineup. He hasn't been on the ice for a goal against. I think that's pretty good, you guys. I think that's deserving of some recognition here. And that's part of the reason why I brought up Jake McCabe's name. When I was doing my research heading into the podcast, I was wondering, who can I bring? Who can I put here? I saw that tweet and I said, yeah, I had Jake McCabe scribbled down. And I said, yeah, that's going to cement him as a star in this one. And look, just this think, guys, he is going to be on this team for another 2 years at $2 million a season. You know, even at a little more than $2 million a season, and that's pretty good value for the Leafs, considering he's had to replace Jake Muzzin, and we know Jake Muzzin brings a different type of play that the Leafs are going to need come playoff time. That's the type of play from Jake McCabe that's going to help the Leafs win some of those tight games that they've struggled to win in past years. So hopefully Jake McCabe can keep it up. Him and TJ Brody seem to do quite well together. Whether or not that pairing remains, we'll see. I think it should. It definitely should. It's one that they'll obviously be able to go back to. I just wonder, does Sheldon Keefe look to spread things around a little bit and get certain guys with others? But we'll see. We'll see how that comes about. So, second star for me, and this was a tough one. I thought about Austin Matthews because of the goal he scored. Big goal, big moment. That's kind of the big moment player there. Michael Bunting, big goal as well. But I'm going to go with the second line of Sam Lafferty, William Nylander, and Kelly Yarncroke. I thought they were, without that goal that they scored. I don't know if the Leafs come away with the win, just because they were stuck in the mud and they needed a line to get things going. Because New Jersey knew that if they could stop the Matthews and Marner combination, it was going to be hard for the Leafs to find offense from other places. But then Sam Lafferty showing off his speed, showing off, you know what? He's not a second line center, but guess what? In moments, you can find something from him, find something offensively. I've loved the way that his speed can create havoc and just create some offensive chances. And it did exactly that on the goal. It backed up all the New Jersey players to see a player coming with speed, and that allowed Nylander to get free a little bit so he can take the pass, find Calle Yarncroke in front of the net. So a lot of good things to like from that second line there. So whether that line is going to remain, we don't know. John Tavares looks like he could be back. We'll update that once we get a more official confirmation on another episode, but on the next episode probably. But um, I would think that with that chain, with Tavares coming back in, I would expect to see Lafferty go back down the lineup. So if he can continue to produce like that as a bottom six player, I think you're gonna like to see what the bottom six can do offensively, because those are the sort of plays that they need to start making. But we had to give the first star to the star of the show, and that was Ilya Samsonov. The Toronto Maple Leafs do not win this game if Ilya Samsonov does not make those saves he made in the first period. The first period was a very tough period for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't I don't think many would disagree with that assessment. And New Jersey had many plentiful chances early in this game, and Samsonov had to be big. He had to come up with some big saves. That's something he could not do in his last game against the Edmonton Oilers. He just couldn't make that save when the Leafs were having a hard time with some pressure from Connor McDavid, especially, and that costs the Leafs the game a little bit there. They needed their goaltender to make a save, and he did make it in that one. But in this one, he definitely did. I know there was that save on Hughes in front of the net. That set the tone. That set the tone for him. That set the tone for the Leafs in this game. It was a very, very important one there. Obviously, New Jersey outshot the Leafs like crazy in the first period, and they did it for a majority. Second period, it got a little better. In the third period, they needed to figure out a way to get things going there. So Ilya Samsonov definitely deserves recognition for his play there. Yeah, 3 goals allowed on 33 shots. Considering how the struggles he's had on the road, I will take a start like that from Ilya Samsonov. I think many people would. So yeah, and Sheldon Keefe did say he wants to get both Samsonov and Murray some starts along the way. So Murray will start Saturday against Edmonton. I would assume that Samsonov, it's going to be a rotation now. Samsonov will likely get the next game against Buffalo on the Monday, a game I will be in person to watch. So I'll be there for that one. And yeah, considering the road and home splits for Samsonov, it'd be nice to see. And Mike made a good point on the last one, just getting him that opportunity to play more of those games and get more comfortable. And if that's the type of performance you're going to get on the road from Samsonov, that's a very very assuring and comforting thing for the Leafs. So definitely deserving of one of my 3 stars of the game. So I did say I wanted to discuss something that Sheldon Keefe said heading into this game, and it got a lot of people not too happy with Sheldon Keefe. It was about a comment made about a certain player on his team. So we're going to discuss that on the other side. I just want to talk about another show sponsor of today's Locked On Leafs podcast, and that is Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories, then you got to try Built Bar. we just got through the holidays, and I know my goal is to eat a little healthier this year. If you're like me and want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise on taste, then you just gotta go and try a Built Bar. It is healthy and actually tastes well for you. They're so delicious you won't think they're good for you. It's perfect for those who want to get back on track with their New Year's resolutions. What makes them so good is Built Bars are made with 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate, and they made many great flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I also like the cookie dough flavor. It's a great flavor, and cookies and cream. Those are kind of two of the staples that I like from Built Bar. I'm not sure how they do it, but they taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they're healthy. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. Now you can go and get your Built Bars over at Costco or Sam's Club and Walmart. You can go and grab a big box at Sam's Club, a 13 bar box, or go to the pharmacy section at Walmart and get a 4 bar box over there. But if you're like me and like to still order them online, then Built Bar can be ordered at built.com. Use the promo code locked on 15. You'll get 15% off your next order. Just go and grab a Built Bar. You will not regret it. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's your team every day. I'm David Morassutti. Here, Mike DeStefano is on vacation, so you'll be hearing a lot more of me over the next little bit. And there was something I heard many of us saw over Twitter. I didn't get a chance to listen to Sheldon Keefe's comments before the game, and I usually do. I just didn't get a chance to do that, but I did see the very same thing that everybody talked about. I got everyone talking yesterday, and that was some comments made about Timothy Liljegren. He's been obviously scratched the last, coming into this game, the last 2 games, getting the new guys in, and he was the odd man out. It's going to happen once in a while. The younger defenseman is the one that's usually going to get scratched. It didn't surprise me that William Nylander got scratched. Was it disappointing? Yes, it was. So, Sheldon Keefe gave his thoughts on why Liljegren was the odd man out, and I know a lot of people wanted to see another defenseman out instead. Actually, another 2 defensemen as options to come out of lineup. So I just wanted to give you what Sheldon Keefe said and just discuss this a little bit and give my thoughts on it. So Mark Masters tweeting Timothy Liljegren back in after sitting 2 as healthy scratch. With the trades and everything, we got more depth on D, so you got to play at your highest level to be in the lineup, and that's what I'm looking to do. So, I like those. So those were comments made, and then this is the comment here. If you're watching on YouTube, you're seeing the comment. I'm gonna read it for those listening. Sheldon Keefe on Timothy Liljegren. He's an important guy for us, but as I've talked to him about, our team is deeper on defense now. The standard is higher in terms of staying in. He was in a similar situation last season. We saw that last season. We saw that in the playoffs. He started out, then Justin Hall came in for him. I didn't agree with that at the time. I thought Timothy Liljegren deserved to stay in the lineup, and I still think Timothy Liljegren deserves to stay in the lineup. I think his ceiling is a lot higher for the Leafs, and I know everyone. This comes after the Rasmus Sandin trade, and you're trading away a young defenseman that has likely a higher ceiling than like let's say a Justin Hall. And I know a lot of people have not been thrilled with Morgan Riley's play, and he's certainly not played well. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. This is not the Morgan Riley that the Leafs want to give this 8-year extension to, and he's sort of feeling the pressure right now. My question. I think a lot of people are questioning Sheldon Keefe right now and saying, what exactly is the standard? And I'm curious to know what standard Sheldon Keefe is holding with Timothy Liljegren to, because he can't hold him to the same standard that Morgan Riley is being held to, because Morgan Riley should not be in the lineup in that case because he hasn't played to the standard I think that's been set for him. So there's that. Also, Justin Hall hasn't exactly had his best games either. I don't he's been playing better, I will say, playing with Mark Giordano. He's done all right. Um, uh, but at the same time, I just don't know if I have the same confidence with when I watch Justin Hall at times as well. So I don't want to nitpick here at Justin Hall per se, but the fact that Timothy Liljegren is being scratched and then he's saying that there's a standard here, and I'm like, those players not playing to the right standard, and I think that's an unfair characterization of Timothy Liljegren to make it seem like he's not the only. He's the only. And I don't understand that Sheldon Keefe is saying this, but it feels like he's saying that he hasn't played to the standard when there's so many others not. Now I know a lot of people have also gotten upset about seeing, Rasmus Sandin since joining the Washington Capitals balloon into. I mean, he looks great already. He put up 3 points in his debut. Then he has a couple of points the next game. Like, I'm surprised. I was a little surprised, obviously, to see him, get those points right away. But I'm not surprised to see that a young defenseman who was given more opportunity all of a sudden starts to flourish. But here's the thing: the Washington Capitals are not under any pressure to win, right? So, a individual performance like that from Sandin, yes, it looks good on him, but the Washington Capitals also, he has haven't exactly played well either. So would I rather see it's nice to see that Sandin's getting those points, but it'd be better to see him contributing in many ways too, right? I mean, they picked up the 8-3 win over San Jose. I'm not surprised because San Jose is not a very good team and Washington should beat them. They did lose that second game against the Kings where he had the 2 points on the only two goals that Washington scored. But I think the issue here, and you're trying to say that the Leafs maybe have made a mistake to let him go. It was never about the offense for Sandin. We know he has the offense. It's just, can you trust him to play an increased role and be good enough defensively in the playoffs? And there was other players they felt were playing better than that. I understand that. And you know what? You're getting an asset back, and at least, and you got guys going to be here for the next few. Like Jake McCabe's going to be here. Giordano's going to be here next year. I understand that, Timothy with sorry, not Timothy. Well, Timothy Liljegren too. With Rasmus Sandin, this is supposed to be a long term thing, and I get that. But the Leafs were under so much pressure to win. They need to make sure that, you know, with the other moves that they made, that they put themselves in the best position to win now. And Rasmus Sandin, I had faith that he could come in and play well enough at the NHL level. It's just I wasn't going to expect him to play higher up in the lineup. I would rather have a Jake McCabe in the playoffs than a Rasmus Sandin. If some people don't like that, you haven't seen some of the defensive issues that Rasmus Sandin has had. And the fact that I don't know if I would trust Rasmus Sandin in the situation that Jake McCabe was in last night. Some people might not like that opinion, but that's kind of how I based what the Leafs did and why they did it. They still got a draft. They still got a first round pick back. I know it's going to be a late one from Boston, but that's where they picked up Rasmus Sandin in the first place. So, I think the more important thing here is I think with Timothy Liljegren, they viewed him as he is the more important piece going forward for this Leafs team. They don't have the logjam on the right side that they do on the left side. I think right now, if I'm Timothy Liljegren, it's tough. It's probably tough. You're trying to do what you can to stay in the lineup, and there's certain players that Sheldon Keefe has preferred to play over him. You, the only thing I would tell Timothy Liljegren, just make sure you don't give Sheldon Keefe a reason to say we can't trust you to play right now. Continue to play well. Let the other players make the mistakes that they've been making. And eventually Sheldon Keefe will have to come to the realization that you got to play your best players, and hopefully Timothy Liljegren, he'll realize that Timothy Liljegren deserves that opportunity. It's frustrating. It is definitely frustrating, but I think he will eventually get there. So I'm not too worried about Timothy Liljegren right now. But I do think that going forward, it doesn't help to have a young defenseman like this out. He needs to play in these situations to know how to handle them. So I hope Sheldon Keefe gets kind of understands that. And I'm sure look, he understands that. I'm sure he understands that. He understands that Timothy Liljegren is a part of the future here. Justin Hall, not so much. So hopefully we see a little change in that. All right, that will do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast and on all podcasting platforms. Receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself at _Morassutti and follow the show at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode later in the week where we'll catch you up on the latest Leafs news. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.